Story 1. I thought that I could control everything if I planned hard enough, but life has a way of laughing at plans. Story 2. I am not special. The world is out to get all of us. Story 3. Older people aged 40 and over are often considered past it and uninteresting. I am finding the exact opposite in many ways. Story 4. I thought that forgiveness meant letting people back in. Sometimes it just means letting yourself move on. Story 5. I used to believe that everyone had some kindness in them. I've learned there is true evil in the world. Story 6. I hope I will feel like an adult soon. I am over 40 now, but I still feel like a child. Story 7. If I explain things with facts, logic, patience, and calm, people will make a sincere effort to listen and understand what I am saying, even if they initially disagree. Story 8. I believed that being a good person would mean good things would come. Turns out the world is not fair like that. Story 9. That my siblings prioritized me as much as I prioritized them, sometimes even more than I prioritized myself. Story 10. That hard work alone guarantees success. I have learned that timing, people, and a bit of luck matter just as much as effort. Story 11. People my age are old and do not understand anything. Story 12. I thought I'd always be able to wake up at 7 a.m. after a night out and feel fresh. Story 13. People believed that technology and the free flow of information would make the world a better place. It turned out that the wild and free internet was more of an accident corporate overlords tolerated for a time as a means to an end. Story 14. My parents genuinely loved me and wanted the best for me in life. Story 15. Declining gifts and giving many gifts are not as pleasant as I thought. I used to decline virtual gifts such as items on Steam to help the other person save money. It turns out that seeing someone accept and enjoy your gift feels much better than seeing it declined. Story 16. At 20, I believed that certain family members were smart. Now at 31, I cannot understand how they manage to get dressed in the morning without killing themselves. Story 17. Everything happens for a reason. It does not. Sometimes the universe hands you a bad card. Story 18. I thought I was always right, knew everything, and was invincible. Boy, did I have my head up my ass. Story 19. Children should be kicked out of the house to fend for themselves before they are 20 years old. Story 20. Did you have beliefs at 20? I was just a walking, talking mess. Story 21. Oh man. At 20, I was a staunch conservative. I am 42 now and no longer very conservative at all. Story 22. I thought most hatred in the world came from ignorance or stupidity. Now I know it is taught to children and is often a choice for adults. Story 23. By working hard full-time, I will be able to afford to buy a modest home. Story 24. While university provides education, for graduates it is mainly about networking. Ultimately, the biggest success stories often involve knowing someone. Story 25. I thought therapy was for weak people. Life humbled me. Talking it out was the strongest move I ever made. Story 26. Religion. I just drove by a church today and saw their electronic sign reading confession at 3 p.m. That is a really gross concept now that I no longer believe. Story 27. Things will get better. Bush has to be the worst president possible, so it is only up from here. Story 28. I was hopeful for the future in my 20s. Now I am in my 40s, and I think the world is a dumpster fire that will continue to burn for a long time. Story 29. At 20, I firmly believed that life and work were a meritocracy and a democracy, and that the best and brightest would naturally rise to the top. At 49, I have realized the following. At work, people who rise to the top are willing to be cruel to others. In life, people at the top are often born into that position and aggressively protect their status. Story 30. Both sides are the same. Yes, both parties pander to corporate interests, but how they do so, how they bargain across the aisle, the goals set at their conventions, and how answerable they are to their constituents are very different. Democrats ended the career of an effective senator over a picture he took as a comedian 30 years ago, in which he pretended to grab a sleeping woman's breasts. Meanwhile, Republicans elected a man who was caught on tape saying he could grab women by the genitals to the presidency. Story 31. Unfortunately, I was not accepting of gay people and did not understand. Now at 48, I am open and accepting. Story 32. I no longer believe in gradualism or in the idea that the largest systems of power can be changed from within. Story 33. The government was responsible for looking after the population. Now it looks after a few billionaires and their shareholders. Story 34. The United States Republican Party is trying to pass legislation that supports the lower and middle classes. I voted Republican at age 20. I now pay better attention and try to vote for whoever is not full of shit. Story 35. I grew up in a right-leaning family. I used to admire my grandfather until I realized in my mid-30s that I had learned racism from him. The world events around the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic and the death of George Floyd, along with conversations with friends, opened my eyes and I changed my views almost overnight. The shift was so complete that it feels strange I ever held conservative views. Story 36. I'll be happy when I'm older. If I work hard, I will be rewarded. If I do good, positive things will happen. It's all bullshit. Life isn't fair and it's tilted toward the rich. Take care of your own and that's it. Story 37. The idea that if I work hard, my efforts will be rewarded is nonsense. Story 38. Most of it goes like this: you believe something, then you learn it is false, and later you realize it is not entirely false but contains a large amount of nuance you lacked before. Some things, however, remained false. Story 39. When I was 20, I believed I did not want children. This was largely because I was very depressed and did not know how to cope. I did not want a child to see or have to deal with my problems. I am turning 35 this April. My wife and I will have been together for 4 years then, and our little girl will be born that month. I discovered I simply was not ready to have a child until I met my wife. I have improved myself since then. I am really happy, something I did not believe I would feel in my 30s when I was 20. Story 40. I believed skills mattered more, but I was wrong. Labels matter far more than expertise or experience. Story 41. I was taught all the beliefs common to a white evangelical household. I was a student at a Christian university at the time, and now I am an atheist. Story 42. When I was 20, I was teetering on the edge of becoming an involuntary celibate. I was lonely and isolated, getting bullied at work in the United States Air Force, unpopular with women, and to top it off, I had 2 recent encounters with women who fit the horrible mold involuntary celibates imagine. On top of that, my mother was a gold digger who taught me romantic relationships were strictly transactional, and my father was misogynistic. The first actively strung me along to boost her own ego, and the second enjoyed manipulating my friends and me against each other. My parents were part of the problem. I was in a low place, and my despair made me start to hate women, as if all women were like those two. It became an outlet for my anger at everything going wrong in my life. What saved me was a transfer to a new squadron at work. It gave me room to breathe and time to step back and think. I made friends, spent time with them, and eventually got a girlfriend and fell in love, rather than just seeking sex. By age 24, I had broken the old habits, but I still cringe when I think about my attitude and behavior back then. Story 43. That I can be friends with someone who is mean to other people as long as it does not affect me. Story 44. Closure is necessary. Sometimes you get those cathartic conversations about something that happened, and you may even get to say the clever lines you thought of in the shower when you replayed how it could play out. But it is not uncommon to never have that conversation, and even when you do, it may not bring much healing. A family member of mine watched her husband sexually assault another family member repeatedly. I was not involved. On her deathbed, when asked how she could have allowed it, she minimized what had happened and then blamed the survivor for spoiling her final days by asking. Catharsis is never guaranteed. Story 45. I believed it was all my fault when people lied to me, cheated, and left me in the darkest times of my life. I thought I was difficult to be around and that I had brought it all on myself. My self-esteem took a huge blow. Now I see they were terrible people and it wasn't my fault. Story 46. You were supposed to have it all figured out by 20. Turns out everyone is making it up as they go, and changing your mind is basically the whole point. Story 47. Women should never use a vibrator when having sex with a man because men's egos could not handle it. It was better to let him search for the right spot, motion, and speed for an hour. Story 48. Everyone has value. Turns out not everyone does. Story 49. Empathy is not putting yourself in someone else's situation and imagining what you would do. That is projection. Projection involves carrying your background and abilities into their problems. They do not share your background or capabilities. Empathy is understanding their circumstances and the motivations that led to the choices you are examining. Story 50. I registered for the Republican Party when I was 18 and voted Republican in every presidential election since Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump was a bridge too far for me. Story 51. I thought circumcision was medically necessary to prevent yeast infections, but it appears to be primarily a religious practice. Story 52. Quite a few. I was once a card-carrying Republican, and at 79 I am a progressive. This is a massive change. Story 53. Like many college kids, I embraced libertarianism. I now know it's a complete sham. It never truly existed. Its most famous proponent was a fraud, and it only became popular when the Tea Party movement emerged. The whole movement was an invention of the ultra-rich to get voters to favor deregulation and lower taxes for the wealthy. Nowadays, I see anyone who still identifies as a libertarian and believes in a fairy tale. It gives them a safe space to distance themselves from Republican Party nonsense when they feel pressured, while allowing them to fully support Make America Great Again. Story 54. Capitalism is good. Socialism is bad. Now I am one Communist Manifesto purchase away from becoming a full-on tanky. Story 55. That religion is actually a good thing. I grew up religious, but I am now anti-religion. Story 56. I learned that God will provide, but you must take action yourself. He provides in His time. If you pursue what you need, you will be less deprived. Story 57. I thought the market regulates itself and that taxes were theft. Story 58. Hard work is rewarded. Doing the right thing helps life work out for you and karma exists. Story 59. At 20, I thought non-stop hustle mattered. Now I believe rest and relationships compound returns faster. Story 60. You cannot completely mold your children through parenting, and not all difficult behavior results from bad parenting. I was a nanny for 4 years and later became a parent, and I learned how utterly mistaken that belief was. Parenting is vitally important and shapes children to an extent, but ultimately children are who they are, and all you can do is support and guide them and hope for the best. Story 61. So many things. One was that it is wrong to terminate a pregnancy solely because the child would have a disability. Story 62. I realized no matter how expensive your health insurance is, it does not cover extended nursing care. Health insurance covers only acute nursing under rules designed to increase shareholder profits, rules that could not have been enacted under the 1965 health insurance regulations. One of many traps I found in the law is that buying an annuity in almost all cases disqualifies you from nursing care that no insurance covers except long-term care. It is very easy to make a mistake that makes an annuity non-compliant. Congress created this situation deliberately with the Deficit Reduction Act of 2005. The cost of nursing care is unregulated, and nursing homes can charge private pay patients extra whenever Medicaid reimbursement from other patients does not cover costs, meaning private pay patients are overcharged. I do not sell annuities. Annuities are just one example of how the Deficit Reduction Act of 2005 changed healthcare. There are only two ways to cover nursing care: pay an inflated private pay rate or buy long-term care insurance, which is poorly regulated. The Deficit Reduction Act of 2005 contains many obscure traps designed to disqualify people from Medicaid coverage of nursing care, so most lawyers do not understand all of it. A court described interpretation of the law as being like a bog. This is just one example. Based on what I have heard, Consult an elder law attorney you trust in your state. If you think long-term care insurance is the solution for nursing care, buy a prepaid policy, because health care in the United States by design is different from that in other industrialized countries. Story 63. I used to think karma or something like it was real. Now I am certain it does not exist. Story 64. Universal health care should not be implemented because the government cannot run it effectively. I still have mostly conservative values, but my view on this topic has completely changed. Story 65. I thought I was a libertarian for some reason. I didn't vote for Barack Obama in 2008 or 2012. By 2016, I was starting to realize I was much more liberal and thought that, on the whole, Obama had been an excellent president. I took the easy way out because I lived in an ultra-blue state and voted for Gary Johnson in 2016. By 2020, I had moved to a swing state and was very comfortable accepting that I was liberal and that Donald Trump was an evil moron. Story 66. I used to believe that the people governing our country were somewhat capable and intelligent, and that any shortcomings were due to corruption and self-serving malice. I was wrong. They are dim, short-sighted, and delusional. Story 67. I used to believe that people all over the world wanted different things. Obviously, there are exceptions, but after traveling you realize most people want safety and security for themselves, their families, and their friends. We are not that different from each other. Story 68. I used to hate religion and was almost an agnostic. As I have gotten older, I no longer think it is wrong to want to believe in something higher than ourselves. Anything that brings comfort to you and your family is a good thing, and no one has all the answers. If a given faith can give you peace, I say it is worth having. Also, religion connects people in a world of immediate gratification and reliance on technology to feel connected, loved, and to laugh. Story 69. Churches may do some good, but they are also factories of hatred and exclusion. Story 70. Unions had run their course and were no longer needed. That is incorrect. Story 71. I used to believe that most people were good and kind and that truly bad people were rare. Trumpism cured me of that. I now believe there are many bad people. Not all of them support Donald Trump, but all supporters of Donald Trump are bad people. Story 72. Bible study, prayer, and church attendance are important. Story 73. The phrase "all lives matter" was an appropriate response to Black History Month. Thank goodness we learn and grow beyond the age of 20. Story 74. Boneheaded conspiracies, such as the claim that the moon landing was fake. Story 75. I did not want antidepressants, but now I love them because I can feel again. Story 76. Capital punishment. The government should not have the power to kill its citizens. This is not a recent conclusion. It is sad that I must state this. Story 77. The salvation of my soul is through the resurrection of Jesus. Like, what the heck? Story 78. My church taught that a wife should obey her husband, and I believed it. Story 79. Being in the United States illegally is a crime. I was young and naive, and I believed that entering the country without authorization or overstaying a visa made you a criminal. I educated myself. My younger self was definitely an idiot about many things. Story 80. I thought I was smart and could figure out how to do anything. Now that I am older and realize I am not as capable, it has stifled me. I do not even attempt many things I would have tried without a second thought when I was 20. Story 81. Politicians will do the right thing eventually. Boy, was I naive and hopeful as fuck. Story 82. Good work leads to a good salary. In reality, visibility, appearing busy, announcing your activity using buzzwords, and deferring to your boss's opinions can also lead to a good salary. Story 83. The United States of America is the leader of the free world. It is our friend and has our back. Story 84. The Republicans are rational and can be reasoned with. Story 85. I am 21. Obviously, a long time has passed, but I thought I had to listen to everyone's opinion to think as broadly as possible and make decisions based on that. Now I take advice only from competent people who have experience and clear results specifically related to the question I am interested in. Story 86. I briefly believed conspiracy theories that the September 11th, 2001 attacks were an inside job. Story 87. America was a good country that helped make the world a better place. Story 88. That hard work, determination, and perseverance, if you really want something, do not always pay off in the end. Success often depends on who you know, where you came from, what resources you have available, and luck. Story 89. I had much more faith that people are basically good, but they are so goddamn stupid and inconsiderate. Story 90. I thought being gay or transgender was a mental illness. I have a lot of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer friends now, 10 years later. Story 91. Wanting children. I still want to be a parent, but I love my children too much to let them exist. Story 92. I thought that everybody was expendable. It seemed like a reasonable thought. In practice, it is not true. Some people are so unique that they appear only once in a lifetime. Story 93. I was still a Christian when I was 20. I guess I'm happily a pagan now. Story 94. I thought sleep was for the weak, but now I realize coffee is for people who think they don't need sleep. Story 95. We thought we were the only intelligent species on Earth. It turns out we are not even the most advanced. Story 96. Friends, at least mine from college, will stick by you after graduation when you show them respect and support. I should have spent that time worrying about myself, laughing out loud. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.